Welcome to the Red Story, and just subscribe so I understand that everything is not in vain. Make some tea or coffee and listen to our new story, Echoes of Understanding. My name is Jessica Bennett, and I'm a 38-year-old woman living in the heart of Austin, Texas. Our home is a charming two-story Victorian with a wraparound porch and a front yard filled with wildflowers. The paint is a cheerful pale yellow with white trim, and wind chimes hang from the eaves, tinkling softly in the warm breeze. It's the kind of house that exudes warmth and welcome, a stark contrast to the growing chill within. My husband, Daniel, is a successful architect. Tall and handsome, with sandy brown hair that he keeps just a bit too long and hazel eyes that once sparkled with curiosity, he's admired in his field for his innovative designs. We met in college, both of us full of dreams and aspirations. He was the creative genius. I was the analytical mind pursuing a degree in psychology. Together, we felt unstoppable. We have a daughter, Emily, who just turned 10. She's the spitting image of Daniel, with her father's eyes and a mane of chestnut hair that tumbles down her back in loose curls. Emily is a bright, imaginative child who loves to paint and has an uncanny ability to find joy in the simplest things. But somewhere along the way, Daniel and I began to drift apart. His career took off, demanding more and more of his time. Late nights at the office became the norm, and when he was home, his mind was elsewhere, lost in blueprints and building codes. Conversations that once flowed easily between us now felt forced, reduced to mundane topics like grocery lists and Emily's school schedule. One evening, after tucking Emily into bed, I found Daniel hunched over his laptop at the dining room table, papers strewn about haphazardly. "Hey," I said softly, leaning against the doorway. "Do you have a minute?" He glanced up briefly. "Can it wait, Jess? I'm in the middle of something important." I suppressed a sigh. It's just that we haven't really talked in a while. He tapped his pen impatiently against the table. "We're talking now, aren't we?" "That's not what I mean, and you know it," I replied, a hint of frustration creeping into my voice. He rubbed his temples. "Look, if you're upset about me missing dinner again, I'm sorry. But this project is crucial. Once it's done, things will calm down." "You've been saying that for months," I said quietly. He shrugged, turning back to his screen. "That's how it is in my line of work. You knew that when you married me." I felt a pang at his dismissive tone. "I just miss us, Daniel. I miss you." He didn't look up. "Maybe you should find a hobby or something, to keep yourself busy." I stared at him, disbelief mingling with hurt. "A hobby?" "Yeah," he continued. "Like yoga or knitting or whatever it is you used to do." "I've never knitted a day in my life," I snapped. He shrugged again. "Well, maybe it's time to start." I walked away, my cheeks burning with a mix of anger and embarrassment. In the kitchen, I gripped the edge of the counter, willing myself not to cry. How had we gotten here? The next morning, I decided to take Daniel's advice, though not in the way he intended. After dropping Emily off at school, I headed downtown to a local coffee shop known for its eclectic clientele and open mic nights. The air was thick with the scent of freshly ground beans and the murmur of conversations. I ordered a latte and settled into a corner seat by the window. As I sipped my coffee, I noticed a flyer on the bulletin board advertising a book club that met weekly at the shop. Reading had always been a passion of mine, one that had fallen by the wayside amidst the demands of family life. "Mind if I sit here?" A voice interrupted my thoughts. I looked up to see a man around my age, with dark hair flecked with gray and striking blue eyes. He held a mug of coffee and a folded newspaper. "Sure," I replied, gesturing to the empty chair. "Thanks," he said, settling in. "I'm Michael." "Jessica," I offered with a polite smile. He unfolded his newspaper but seemed more interested in people watching than reading. After a few moments, he nodded toward the flyer. "Thinking of joining?" "Maybe," I said. "I used to read a lot, but it's been a while." "Life gets in the way," he agreed, "but it's never too late to pick it up again." We fell into easy conversation, discussing favorite authors and the merits of physical books versus e-readers. I found myself laughing at his witty observations and feeling a lightness I hadn't experienced in some time. As I gathered my things to leave, Michael handed me a business card. In case you decide to come to the book club, it'd be nice to see a familiar face. I tucked the card into my purse. Maybe I'll see you there. That evening, Daniel was, as usual, engrossed in his work. Over a dinner of reheated leftovers, I mentioned the book club. Sounds fun, he said absent-mindedly, scrolling through his phone. I'm thinking of joining, I continued. It meets on Thursdays. Moham, he murmured. Would you be able to watch Emily those nights? He looked up briefly. Can't you get a sitter? Thursdays are tough for me. I clenched my jaw. Sure, I'll figure something out. The following Thursday, I attended the book club. The group was welcoming, a mix of ages and backgrounds. Michael was there, and we exchanged warm smiles. The discussion was engaging, and for the first time in a long while, I felt intellectually stimulated. After the meeting, Michael and I lingered outside the shop. Care to grab a bite? He asked. There's a great taco truck around the corner. I hesitated. I should probably get home. He raised his hands in mock surrender. No pressure, just thought I'd offer. But something inside me, maybe a longing for companionship, prompted me to accept. You know what? Tacos sound great. We walked to the food truck and ordered, finding a bench nearby to sit and eat. Conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on everything from childhood memories to aspirations for the future. You're easy to talk to, I said between bites. He smiled. Likewise. It's rare to find someone who appreciates a good Hemingway debate. I laughed. Most people just nod politely when I bring up literature. Well, they're missing out, he said, his eyes twinkling. Time slipped away, and before I knew it, my phone buzzed with a text from the babysitter. Everything okay? I glanced at the time. Oh wow, it's late. I should get going. I'll walk you to your car, Michael offered. As we reached my car, an awkward silence settled between us. I fumbled with my keys. Thanks for tonight. I had a really good time. Me too, he said softly. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. Then, impulsively, I leaned in and kissed him. It was brief, but electric, a spark that ignited something deep within me. I'm sorry, I stammered, pulling back. Don't be, he replied, a gentle smile playing on his lips. I drove home in a daze, emotions swirling. Guilt wrestled with exhilaration. At home, the house was dark. I paid the sitter and checked on Emily, who was sound asleep, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. In bed, Daniel snored softly beside me, oblivious to the turmoil inside me. Staring at the ceiling, I wondered what had come over me. Over the next few weeks, Michael and I continued to see each other. Our meetings became more frequent. Lunches that stretched into afternoons, stolen moments that felt both wrong and undeniably right. He made me feel seen, heard, understood. With him, I rediscovered parts of myself I thought were long gone. One afternoon, as we walked along the river, I confided in him. I don't recognize myself anymore. This isn't who I am. He stopped, turning to face me. You're allowed to want happiness, Jessica. But at what cost? I whispered. He took my hands in his. I don't want to complicate your life. If you want to end this, I understand. I looked into his earnest eyes and felt a pang of sadness. I don't want to end it, but I can't keep living a lie. That evening, I attempted once more to reach out to Daniel. After Emily was in bed, I found him in his office, surrounded by drafts and models. Daniel, can we talk? He sighed, removing his glasses. Jess, I'm really tired. Can this wait? No, it can't, I said firmly. I feel like we're strangers living under the same roof. I need to know if you're willing to work on us. He rubbed his eyes. I'm providing for this family. Isn't that enough? Emily and I need more than just financial support. We need you, present and engage. He shook his head. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Then help me understand, I pleaded. He stood up, frustration evident. I don't have time for this. If you're unhappy, maybe you should find a job or something to keep you occupied. His words stung. Is that what you think? That I'm just bored and need a hobby? You're blowing this out of proportion, he muttered, turning away. I felt a wall slam down between us. You know what? Forget it. I left the room, a mix of anger and resignation washing over me. It was clear he wasn't interested in bridging the gap between us. Days turned into weeks. My relationship with Michael deepened, but so did my internal conflict. One afternoon, as we sat in a quiet corner of the library, I made a decision. I think we need to stop, I said gently. He looked at me, concern etched on his face. Are you sure? I nodded. As much as I care about you, this isn't sustainable. I need to focus on my family. He reached over, squeezing my hand. I understand. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what. Thank you, I whispered, grateful for his kindness. At home, I threw myself into activities with Emily. We painted together, baked cookies, and had movie nights filled with laughter. Her joy was infectious, and I began to find solace in our time together. One evening, as we cleaned up after dinner, Emily looked up at me. Mom, are you happy? I was taken aback. Why do you ask, sweetie? She shrugged. You seem different lately, sometimes sad. I knelt down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I'm sorry if I've worried you, but spending time with you makes me very happy. She hugged me tightly. I love you, I love you too, more than anything. Later that night, I found Daniel in the living room, surprisingly without his laptop. Hey, I ventured. Hey, he replied, looking up from a magazine. Emily asked me an interesting question tonight, I began. Oh. She wanted to know if I was happy. He frowned. Why would she ask that? Kids are perceptive, I said. They pick up on things. He set the magazine aside. Are you happy, Jess? I took a deep breath. Honestly, I don't know. He looked down, his expression unreadable. I know I've been distant. Yes, you have, I agreed softly. He sighed. The truth is, I don't know how to fix it. Neither do I admitted. But I think we owe it to ourselves and to Emily to try. He nodded slowly. Maybe we should see someone, a counselor. I was surprised. You'd be open to that. If it means not losing you, then yes. A flicker of hope ignited within me. Okay, let's try. We began attending counseling sessions, where we unpacked years of unspoken grievances and misunderstood intentions. It wasn't easy. There were tears, arguments, and moments I wanted to walk away. But gradually, we started to understand each other again. I didn't tell Daniel about Michael. It was a chapter I chose to keep to myself, a catalyst for change that, while significant, didn't need to be shared. I didn't regret the affair. It awakened me to the realities of my life and pushed me toward confronting the issues in my marriage. But I also knew it wasn't something I would repeat. Months passed, and our family found a new rhythm. Daniel made a conscious effort to be more present, setting boundaries with work and carving out time for us. We rediscovered shared interests and created new memories. One Saturday morning, as we all sat around the breakfast table, Daniel grinned. How about a family hike today? The weather's perfect. Emily clapped her hands. Yes, can we go to the trail with the big waterfall? Sounds like a plan, I agreed, smiling. As we walked the trail, the sun filtering through the trees, I felt a sense of peace. Daniel reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. Thank you for giving us another chance, he said quietly. I looked at him, warmth spreading in my chest. Thank you for being willing to change. That night, after Emily was asleep, Daniel and I sat on the porch swing, the cicadas serenading us. I've missed this, he said, his gaze on the stars. Me too, I admitted. He turned to me. I know I haven't always been the easiest person to live with, but I want you to know that I appreciate you. Everything you do for our family. Emotion welled up inside me. That means a lot. We sat in comfortable silence, the unspoken understanding between us stronger than words. Reflecting on the past year, I realized that while my actions weren't something I was proud of, they had led me to confront the fractures in my life. I didn't regret the affair, not because it was right, but because it propelled me toward seeking the fulfillment I desperately needed. I chose not to repeat those actions, understanding that true happiness required honesty and effort within my marriage. Sharing my journey with you, dear reader, is a way for me to acknowledge my imperfections and the complexity of relationships. Life isn't a neatly wrapped package, it's messy and unpredictable. But sometimes, in the midst of chaos, we find clarity. As I lay down that night beside Daniel, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing, I felt hopeful. Our story wasn't over. It was evolving. And for the first time in a long while, I was excited to see where it would lead.